Hans Wormhat. This video is called Tears in Trannyland, and it's really just a collection of different ideas and just some comments that I've written and maybe that some other people have written. And so just kind of a big group of totally different topics, and I'll just tell you when I'm switching topics. And I just think it's important to talk about this stuff, to talk about Trannyland, where you live, and just truths once you've woken up to Trannyland. And here, we'll get started. So this topic is, why do all these Illuminati satanic trannies, they don't mind lying to everybody for their paycheck? So specifically public school. And if you haven't already looked, I mean, most legitimate users on my channel should already know this. Public school is full of transgenders, these Baphomet transgenders, and they claim to care about children and all that. So why are they lying for a living? Here's just a comment I wrote. Are they paying them a bunch of money, hush hush, in order to tell the lies? So no, I don't think so. I don't think they even need to pay them under the table to lie. Tranny teachers already get paid well. My satanic mom, for instance, makes a decent living. I believe she makes over $60,000 a year just teaching middle school. Right, that's a pretty good living for just being a teacher. And there was a super crazy Illuminati Martin with a globe in their office, and we didn't do anything revolving. We didn't do anything involving the Earth, really. So why would you have a globe anyways? This Illuminati Martin, they made under $60,000 a year. So when you're a public servant, you can actually look up how much these people make. So maybe there's some money going under the... I doubt it, though. You can just look it up most of the time, what these people make. Yeah, this person had a PhD, and they were making under $60,000 a year. Because you got to work your way up. You got to do the steps. Have you ever... So you guys are on YouTube, you probably know this better than some people. Have you noticed that a lot of shill channels, they record while they're in a stairwell? Like they'll be sitting on their stairs and they record showing all the stairs behind them. Or they like to get a ladder in the background. And think in Masonry, the idea of a ladder, it's a big Masonic idea, the ladder. And I think it has to do with doing the steps. You got to do the steps, work your way up. So... that's how all these trannies work. So, like I said, the Illuminati Martin, it's because they were pretty young still. So that's probably why they weren't making that much money. I bet in 30 years that they've been working this job more, they'll be making a lot more money. You got to do the steps. You got to work your way up. And another example of a person where I worked was just a super evil strat. And all they did, their whole job just revolved around doing a bunch of admin BS. They didn't do any real work. And most of what they did was they made all the real legitimate workers like me, they just made our lives hell. They were the ones that always took a bunch of stupid complaints that were completely unfounded, and they'd make you go to meetings about them, and they were always pushing people to do annoying things that don't make any sense. You know, it's just like, I don't know, there's probably a word for it. They're the muscle men just doing the will of the people at the top. Those ones get paid pretty well. Their jobs are really easy. They probably don't really have to do much, and all they're doing is they're enforcing what the higher ups want to happen. Oh, go make sure that they all do this annoying thing that they don't want to do, and yell at them and be nasty to them until they do it. And this person, so yeah, you can go look up, if somebody works for the government, you can go look up how much money they make. So one day I just looked it up because I was like, I hate this person. This person just does nothing but make people's lives miserable. Nobody likes them. And they made over $110,000 a year just making people's lives miserable at the work. And it's, why would you pay somebody so much money that all that they do is they make your own workers just miserable? But that's how Masonry works. And I think this is very rare. So sometimes I've talked about some trannies, they just get a starting job, making a ton of money, doing basically nothing. I think those are just the higher up trannies, the way higher up. But if you're not born into that, you're not going to get that. That's the caste system. is still alive today. It's still very much alive. And you can even think of places like India. India maybe even deserves its own video, but it's almost like too obvious to deserve its own video. All of the Indian gods are transgender, and they're, I mean, basically every Indian family has their own gods slash goddesses slash trannies that they worship. And it's well known that in India, the caste system is still alive. Well, in America, the caste system is still alive too. I mean, we live in Babylon. And the only people that are getting these high-end, easy jobs, making, you know, 6 figures right off the bat, those are usually the high up tranny. Everybody else, they have to do the steps. They got to do what everybody else does. And I mean, I know some people, some inverts that are from really well-off families, but they're not landing a bunch of high jobs. They get pretty lame jobs just like everybody else. And I think it's just because there's so many trannies these days. You got to work your way up. Most people got to work your way up. It's very rare to be born into a very, very high-class tranny family. Most of the other trannies, they got to work hard for it. They got to shill for the system. They got to give their life away for it. And so just a specific example of the types of lies, right? I got kind of sidetracked there talking about wages and stuff, but this is about lying. A lot of them lie for a living, teachers. And here's a specific lie that never sat with me, and it's like totally obvious. The whole Egyptology thing is a bunch of BS. There aren't huge teams of slaves that are chiseling away stones for their whole life. And right, none of that makes any sense, and it never made any sense. So some of the teachers, they might believe this BS, and some of them just love being a satanic deceiver. Some of them probably just get off on the fact that, oh, they know the secret, and I mean, these trannies, I always say this because it's so true. They will lie to you about what they ate for lunch, and they get a kick out of that. So imagine the amount of duping delight they get about telling this huge group of children these fake stories about groups of slaves chiseling away. They know it's a bunch of BS, but they love lying, so of course they'll do it for a paycheck. And some of them, it is like some of these teachers, they start to go wacko a little bit, and they'll start to tell truths, and they'll start to tell their own brand of BS that goes against the system, but they don't typically do that until after they have tenure, and they still don't typically do that because the system can still make their life miserable. They can give them a bunch of, let's say that this is a history teacher and they start going against the narrative. They'll just assign this history teacher to math classes or something, or they'll assign this history teacher to PE classes. And in some of the even weirder cases, haven't you heard about the warehouses, like just huge warehouses where a bunch of teachers who they can't technically fire because they're tenured and they haven't done anything bad enough to get fired. The teachers just have to go there and clock in all day, and then they leave. Like, they don't even have anything to do. They just go into this big warehouse, and it's like, here you go. This is where your work is. And they get their paycheck like that. Some of the trainee tears probably like that. Like, that is the mentality of that would drive a real human insane. Real humans, we want to do something. We want to accomplish something. But for some of these trannies, they might even get a kick out of that. Like, all I have to do is go to this warehouse all day, and I get my nice paycheck and my health care, which for the trannies is like tranny care. Their health care might pay for a lot of their tranny procedures. So what about this, going back to the Egyptology thing? Why would they even lie about something like that? Well, I think that they lie in cases like this. Just, they make the lie big, and they make it the complete opposite of the truth just to steer people off the correct path. So, right, what's the lie? Huge teams of slaves and painstakingly long chiseling work. That's the lie. So I think both of those are lies, and I don't think it takes a huge team of slaves to make these Disneyland props. It's probably a few artisans, and these secrets, right? It's much easier to guard a secret like this if there's a small group of people doing it and not a huge group. So it's probably a small group of artisans, and of course they're not chiseling. Just go look; it's relief work. And you can see them do this. Have you seen them where they make a concrete floor and then they press like a brick design into it? That's what these things are. It's some sort of concrete and then they just press their designs into it. It's very quick. And you've noticed how a lot of the fake Egypt pressings, it looks like stencils. It looks like stencil work. All of their figures look the exact same because, yeah, you're just looking at a bunch of different stencils being used. Same thing with the pyramids. The pyramids probably didn't take huge groups of slaves a long time. It probably was a small team of masons, and they work with cranes, and it probably weren't built that long ago. And I doubt, remember all those diagrams of all the hidden chambers and all that? None of that stuff is probably real. It's honestly just a big pile of stones, or not even stones. They aren't stones, it's concrete. It's just a big pile of concrete, rectangular blocks. And who knows, so some of those pyramids you can like go into some of the caverns that they say, the like secret passageways that are in them. Those could have been built after the fact, right? This is the huge meme of Egyptology is, oh, we just found a new chamber. BS, you just made that chamber and now you're revealing it to us. So even if there are places in the pyramids where they let you go down into these tunnels, they probably like built those later. It probably wasn't original. The original was probably just a huge pile of these concrete blocks. And that's why the pyramids are made out in the middle of nowhere. They just found a place in the middle of nowhere and they're like, okay, let's quickly build these just huge pyramid structures. Right? Obviously Illuminati pyramids, their symbol. And none of the capstone never existed. They tell you that there used to be a shining gold capstone and all that. No, all it's ever been is just a pile of blocks, and it probably was made like a little bit over 100 years ago. Okay, so kind of switching gears. This is just kind of a random thing, but it's about living in Trannyland. If you're a regular human in Trannyland, because somebody just replied, I was just talking about this Egyptology stuff. Why do teachers lie? All that, and they just said like, wow, it's fun actually talking about real life stuff, right? So yeah, most people, when you talk about stuff like this, most trannies, they come at you, they tell you oh, you just need to kill yourself. That's usually what they tell you. Or I always hear people tell me, you better not have kids. And that's how these trannies, they grind you down during life. And my family did this to me. And a lot of you probably have family like this too. So I just want to say this comment because a lot of people can probably relate to it. Because I know that I was this smart when I was young. I know that when they were teaching me this Egyptology stuff, I knew it made no sense. But if you speak out, everybody's just going to shut you down and shame you. And so here's a story that my satanic mom, who probably didn't care me, loves to tell these psychotic stories to me. And I don't even understand. I mean, the reason that they tell me these stories is probably just to, I don't know, disturb me. So here's a story that my mom would always love to tell, the story about how we would be driving in the car and I would be asking my mom a bunch of questions. I was always a big question asker. I wanted to know why and how things worked. I remember as a child, I knew that koalas were just a plushie. So we were probably driving home from the zoo and I was like, how come why is the koala not moving? Why was the koala just sitting there? So anyways, my mom used to she tells the story all the time about how I would be asking her a bunch of questions and my mom would tell me, you can keep asking me questions, but I'm not listening to you anymore. And then she would crank up the volume in the car, just probably their satanic tranny music, crank it up so that she would just drown me out. What a psychotic thing to tell your child, first of all. Well, what a psychotic thing to do to your child. And then the way that she tells the story, it's like she's proud of herself for it. Like, oh, you were so annoying as a child asking me questions, so I would just drown you out with music and tell you I'm not listening to you anymore. Who does that? This is how tares act. You shall know them by their fruits. Also, my Rex, my T-Rex, FTM grandpa, and my T-Rex dad, what they love doing more than anything, they would love starting arguments with me. How crazy do you have to be to start arguments with a young child? So they would love to start arguments with me, and then everybody would gang up on me. Nobody would ever take my side whatsoever. So they would pick the fight with me, start an argument, and then they all would gang up on me. And I remember multiple times I eventually would just like get so fed up that nobody would ever take my side. Everybody was just ganging up on me. I would just run away and just start crying. And that's how these tears act. This is how they crush your spirit when you're young. And it just shows you how psychotic these people are. They're the tears. There's just no other explanation. Okay, totally random comment, but that's what this video is, just a grab bag of different ideas. Have you noticed that giant buses, it doesn't seem like they run on gasoline? So just like the airplane hoax, airplanes don't run on gas. There is no jet fuel. Jet fuel doesn't melt steel beams because jet fuel doesn't exist. And same thing with giant buses. I've lived in a lot of college towns, and they have these giant buses that are running nonstop. And even if you listen to them, you can tell that the engine sounds different. It doesn't sound like a combustion engine. It sounds more like a turbine. So it's probably runs on air. Natural things that they say run on natural gas. Well, air is a natural gas, so think about that. And so I just heard a garbage truck go by. What about garbage trucks? Do you ever see a garbage truck at a gas station? What are these things running on? Why don't they have to refuel? Why don't you ever see giant buses refueling? So back in the day with school buses, okay, they drop off the kids, and then they have plenty of time to go back and refuel or something, and then they pick them up. But no, big city buses, those things don't ever stop. You can't drive all day and never stop to refuel. So there's something else going on there. Really quickly, going back to the school teacher idea, and no, you know how they have these warehouses where teachers that were bad and they can't fire them. One of the biggest accusations that usually gets thrown around is pedo. And yeah, public school does have a lot of pedos in it, and that's just another reason you shouldn't send your children to school, right? That obviously, if you're a pedo, they would be attracted to these type of jobs too, and they like exploiting the weak children. And so I just have one story that probably is true. I mean, I remember my brother talking about this. He said that he had a teacher that he would like, the teacher who, probably FTM. These FTM are so pedo. They're extremely pedo, FTM. That's why it's so important for you to recognize these tears. Stay away from them. Just rebuke them. You're not supposed to interact with these tears. So anyways, he had a teacher that would allegedly like smell girls' hair and like pick up their jackets and smell them, and would confiscate their chapstick, and the children saw him like using the children's chapstick after he confiscated. Yeah, public school is just full of these tears, tranny tears, and they're evil, psychotic, liars, and pedos. I guess one other teacher story that just I'm reminded of is, well, so my astronomy teachers are probably some of the worst. My astronomy teacher also was, so right, taking you away from God with astronomy. They also ran the Christian club. So who knows, their favorite Tranlets behind the scenes, they probably were snickering to, haha, everything that I'm teaching in this class is a bunch of BS. You really live under a firmament. God is totally real. I think it's hilarious. This person was an obvious Jew, and they would like sell bagels on the side. They probably made more money selling bagels than they did being a teacher. But also, this is just a comment that I remember somebody leaving. They also had an astronomy teacher a little different than mine. Their astronomy teacher had a poster on the wall that said, "The Earth isn't flat. You can trust me." Right? So you know that's a tear. Just liar tear. Just a few more topics. This is already pretty long. And okay, so totally off, of what I've been talking, but do you know those modern CAPTCHAs? So where it's like, prove you're not a robot, and then you got to click on the different pictures. Have you noticed that you never ever see repeat pictures? They have thousands and thousands and thousands. They have so many different photos of just walkways and storefronts and cars on the freeway. And so something just clicked for me the other day. This proves mass surveillance. So some places like London, we already know CCTV, CC33. We already know in places like London, if you're on the streets of London, you're being recorded. And so it's much bigger than that. If you're on the streets of anywhere, you're being recorded. If you've ever done these CAPTCHAs, you can see it's just a bunch of weird residential neighborhoods in the middle of nowhere, photos of cars and stuff, fire hydrants. And also it proves that image recognition is pretty good these days, really good, right? How do you think that they have this basement somewhere with 1 million Chinese people sitting there looking at these grainy images saying, well, that's a fire hydrant, that's a car, that's a bus, this is a bridge. No. Image recognition is good enough that the computer will know, right? So here's just a thought that I had. They probably have a database somewhere, a system somewhere where they can type in like red car and it'll show up all of their little CCTV things where there's a red car present. And it can probably tell them how many red cars are present. And yeah, that's just something that clicked for me. These new CAPTCHAs where they show you a bunch of different images of select everyone that's a car, click on all the buses. That just proves how wide this mass surveillance is, and it also proves that their image recognition is pretty good these days. It can take an image and it can tell you where the cars are, it can tell you where the people are, it can tell you where the fire hydrants are, right? So that's just kind of a one-off topic. Okay, this is a good topic to talk about. And if you've woken up to everyday trannies in your life, you've probably noticed that a lot of teen pregnancies are done by trannies. How does an MTF, oops, get knocked up during high school? It doesn't make sense. These are planned. They're planned pregnancies. It's like, so what it reminds me of is, you know, the Hunger Games and they call out the lotto, and if your number gets called, you lose and you have to go do the number game. Some of these Masonic families, they lose the lotto and they get scripted into their life. Okay, you're going to have a teen pregnancy. And I grew up on a street with a bunch of trannies. I could have been the only real, I probably was definitely, in all likelihood, I was the only real boy. I don't know if there were real girls around me, but most of them were trannies. And there were more than one. I can think of 2 that lived right next to me that had these high school pregnancies. And one of them was an obvious Free Martin with a micro, and the other one was a scary strat. So how are these people getting teen pregnancies? It gets scripted into their life. Oh, you're going to have a teen pregnancy. And then who knows, maybe a surrogate carries it, maybe an FTM carries it. I don't remember if the FTM carried it or not. But maybe. I don't think so, though. And it's very strange things, too, because the FTM had a strat child. So there's a sperm donor from somewhere, because you can't make a strat from a Free Martin. It doesn't work like that. And the strat had a Free Martin child, so I don't know. But anyways, if you just think back to your past, you'll be able to come up with examples of trannies getting these fake high school pregnancies. And it's just part of the psyop. Oh, I'm a real human because I had a child in high school. Yeah, right. BS. And kind of along the lines with this, very similar to this, is all the single mothers. So I'll just tell my story of somebody I know, a really fat, ugly, disgusting, tattoo-covered strat who claims that none of this story ever made sense when they told it to us, claims they got knocked up and then there's no dad in the picture. Not at all. They don't even talk about that. It's like there is no dad at all. They just say that they never told the dad or whatever, but there probably is no dad. This is probably, so what I think this particular case was a strat who was just convinced by their strat mom, whatever, to have a kid, because I think I think the strat wanted a grand tranlet, and so they got convinced. Well, don't worry about it. You just pretend to get pregnant, and I'll do most of the work, because it's one of those situations where the strat has a kid, but strat grandma is the one that does most of the work. So I think that there's a lot of cases like this too, where, oh, I'm a single mother. It's just a tranlet that was pushed on them for some other reason. It either got written into their story, or they have a strap parent who really wants a grand tranlet, right? Because this person was nasty, and first of all, nobody wants to sleep with that, and they're not a female, so I don't believe that they even had a pregnancy. It probably was a surrogate. Yeah, there's a lot of surrogates. And also, kind of similar to this, I know some story, one in particular that I'll talk about. I think that for the trannies, arranged marriages are alive and well. I think that it's just hidden. It's kind of another one of these things where some tranny cultures, like in the Middle East, they're just open about it. Oh, arranged marriages are a thing. But in America, so I think of it as similar to the caste system. Think of castrato, caste system. So similar to the caste system being alive and well in America, but just hush hush, I believe that arranged marriages are also alive in America, but it's just hush hush. And what they do is, because I know this fat, dumpy Jew FTM that they claim that they knocked up this disgusting Miss Piggy strat. This doesn't make sense. How does a gross FTM knock up a strat in a one-night stand type situation? That doesn't make sense. It's a hoax cover story. So what I think's going on is it's probably just an arranged marriage. It's just two trannies and their tranny families decide to make up this hoax story to cover the fact that it's an arranged marriage. Oh, just pretend that you guys knocked each other up, whatever, and you got married really quick because you got pregnant. First of all, the time in which these people did it, that doesn't make sense. People don't really do that anymore. Oh, quick, let's get married because you got knocked up. There's just not as much societal push for people to get married just because they got knocked up. So I don't even believe it. And these people hated each other. They really, really hated each other. So it's like they were forced to be together. And they eventually divorced, but I don't believe that it was natural at all. I think it was an arranged marriage, and they hide behind oh, I knocked her up, and then we got married all of a sudden. This is already a pretty long video, but I may as well just keep going with it. Just a few more quick ideas. Middle child. I'm a middle child. How many middle children, and you know how they always talk about middle children issues and all that. So I'm from a Blue Lodge family, and it looks like most Blue Lodge families, they like cap out at 2 children. Everybody in my tranny family, it's just 2 children exactly, 2 children exactly. But then there's my family, and we have 3, and I'm stuck in the middle. The reason that we had 3 children in our tranny family is probably because, okay, the first one came out as a tranny, but then I came along, and it didn't work out how they planned. So then they had their second tranlet. There's probably a lot of situations just like mine where the second child doesn't work out, or maybe the first child didn't flip. So it just seemed weird to me that literally everybody in my family had 2 children, but then I'm just this middle child stuck in the middle and not a tranny and just totally ostracized by my family. So that probably explains a lot of the middle child syndromes. They're probably just non-trannies stuck in their tranny family. One topic I really want to talk about in this video is annoying attributes of tares. Ye shall know them by their fruits. So here's just a list of annoying attributes of tares. They're never at fault. They're blame pushers. They don't apologize. They make excuses rather than changing their ways. They constantly lie and wear masks. Again, they'll lie to you about what they ate for lunch. They enjoy ruining things for others. I think my MTFX genuinely enjoyed ruining all of our vacations together. Honestly, every vacation that I ever took with my MTF, they would find some way to ruin it. And they would often talk about being depressed, oh, my depression, and they would be mopey, and they'd make it all about them. These trannies do that. They make everything about them, and they just ruin everything for others. They love that. And they live for acting. It's like they enjoy when bad or horrible things happen, because then they get to play the victim. They get to play it up so big. And so, did I already say that they never change? Yeah, that's very important. Trannies, it's like they never change. My Rex dad is the same horrible person she has ever been, maybe even more broken today than ever. And how can she watch somebody normal like me grow up, change so much, learn about all this deception, and she continues on her life like nothing ever changed? I bring up the tranny stuff to my Rex dad. My Rex dad will do stupid things like send me a picture of oranges, and I'll respond back, "Ma 33, orange." And not just my Rex dad, my mom she'll FaceTime and she'll have a coffee mug with a stupid one eye symbol on it. And I'll say, "Oh, cool Illuminati one eye coffee cup you got there." My Rex mom, my Rex mom, my mom recently told me that she was thinking about buying a new car, and I made a joke. I was like, "Oh, what, you gonna buy an orange car?" And she responded back, "Oh yeah, how'd you know?" Yeah, I was thinking about buying an orange car." These people are freaks, and they know that I know about the trannies, because when I was just waking up, I would try to tell them, "How can you not tell that this is a tranny? This is a dirty, ugly tranny. How can you not tell?" But they never admit that I have woken up. They won't do it. So how can they watch people like me change so much, but they never change? They're always the same flawed person. And I always just think of it as, what do all the tranlets write in each other's yearbooks? It'll be like middle school or something, and they write in their yearbook, "Never change." And they, honestly, a lot of them are that same annoying person that they were in middle school. All right, that's it for this video. Just a loose collection of ideas, but important things to talk about. Talk about Trannyland. Talk about your life. Talk about the horrible ways that trannies have acted in your life. All right. God bless everybody in Jesus Christ.